Coming into his bout on January 19th at UFC on ESPN Plus One, Gregor Gillespie was ranked number 15 in the lightweight division. He was taking on Yancy Medeiros, who isn't ranked, although he's one of those guys who's sort of at the fringe. Has had some good wins, has had some losses that were kind of rough for him. But this was a real big opportunity for Gregor Gillespie to prove that he belongs in the top 15 and prove that he is ready to actually start fighting some of the top guys in the division. Ends up winning this fight, only getting one significant strike landed on him by Yancy Medeiros. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play through most of that second round where he ends up getting the finish, talk through what he's doing, explain whether he's just another wrestler who just comes in and takes people down and hangs on to him, whether he's got something going on with his striking, what he's doing on the ground. Is he just trying to hang on? Is he doing anything special? Is he showing improved jiu-jitsu? And then after we go through that, I'll just talk about where I think he belongs in the division now and where I think he stacks up against some of the other top guys.
Trevor, your thoughts on round one?
So notice with his striking, he throws a lot of jabs, and a lot of times after he throws his jab, he'll lower his level to feign a takedown and see if he can get Yancy's left hand down and throw over the top of the right. So he throws the right there. So again, most of the time when he throws, he's going to start off with his lead hand, and then he's going to kind of duck his level down. He's either going to throw an overhand or some sort of power punch with the right, or he's going to shoot. No, I think in this fight, he ends up, both the times he ended up shooting and getting on the takedowns is actually just off of a straight shot. But that's the setup that he's using. So every time, if you're Yancy or if you're anyone else fighting him, with that lean hand, you're always worried that the next thing coming is going to be a shot. And if you're worried that your grappling isn't going to hold up or that he's going to be on you for the rest of the round, you really have to respect it. And by putting your hand down, you're risking getting caught.
You know, and that's just something thrown out there.
Right there, again. Second shot. So we lead with the left. Throw the right.
Thank you, Trevor Whitman.
Sort of feints the jab, comes in on the shot, and from here he's going to be able to follow all the way through and eventually get the takedown. So right now he's in on a single.
Eventually, Gregor would change levels and drive through the shot. Now, Yancy did a good job of
Yancy's not very active here. Gregor catches the leg. Yancy looks for a Kimura here, but Gregor does a good job of kind of using it to pass through. Ends up sort of not necessarily taking his back, but getting behind him and negating the effect of the Kimura. And this is a position that I used a lot here to land knees. But here he's going to drag him down. Now from here he could ride to the side like a folk style wrestler. He actually does a lot. He kind of switches between sort of like a folk style wrestling meta and a jiu-jitsu meta. So he was kind of looking to take the back there, didn't get it. Brings him down again. One hook in, both hooks in. So this is something that initially with Ben Askren, we saw a lot of this where he would kind of play a jiu-jitsu type of game on top where he'd go for both hooks, but then he might lose position. And he started changing later on in his career where he would just start riding from the side. With Khabib, a lot of times he'll like to just kind of ride, get across wrist ride and punch. With Gregor, it's a little bit of both sometimes. In this case, he actually takes the back, but eventually loses the position here. Although later on in the match, or later on in the round, he did not lose the position and ended up finishing from here. So as Yancy turns in, goes for the mount. His hips are a little bit high. Tries to pass through. Yancy recovers half. Now Yancy's sort of using a bit of a knee shield here. He doesn't have his half guard closed, but he is kind of pushing away with it. Gregor with the far side underhook, which is good for him. Ends up sort of almost passing through the mount. Yancy's knee is still in there. Pushes hips forward. Gets the shin in there, passes through. So at this point, Gregor Gillespie has passed the guard. Solid guard passing. Yancy's not an expert on the ground, but he's still pretty good. So this is impressive from him. Yancy turns. Gets his back taken. Semi-mounted. Now he's mounted. Great job by Gregor Gillespie. This is good top jiu-jitsu that we're seeing here. So this isn't just a guy who has a folk style wrestling background who hasn't tried to adapt with jiu-jitsu. He's adding jiu-jitsu to his game. And from here, he's actually going to look for an arm triangle right here. Now, he's finished previous fights with that arm triangle. In this particular fight, he doesn't get the finish, realizes that he's not going to be able to get the squeeze he wants. Resets. So I'm actually going to fast forward a little bit towards the end of the round here. That's too far back. All right, so this is here towards the end where Yancy was trying not to get dragged back down to the mat. So he was on all fours. Gregor couldn't knee him in the head, but he was able to drag him down. And from here again, goes for the single hook, got the hook with the right leg. Yancy turns away, belly's down, not smart. Gregor gets the other hook. Now he's hipping into him, and he's just going to start wailing away on him. Just starts punching. Has a chance for the choke, decides he doesn't want it.
Big shots here from Gregor Gillespie towards the tail end of round 2.
And he's going to get the finish right here. All right. So great match by Gregor Gillespie. Good job by him by both using his wrestling background to get the fight to the mat. But then once he was able to get there, using some aspects of jiu-jitsu to pass the guard when he was on the back instead of just kind of riding from the side and punching with one arm, getting to the back and getting his hooks in, making sure that he had control all the way through. Overall, really good job from him. Now, one of the things that I see a lot with Khabib and Nurmagomedov is when people compare others to him, they just look at the wrestling aspect. They don't actually look at the grappling. And what makes Khabib special isn't just that he's able to take a lot of guys down, but it's that once he's on the ground, he's very good at mixing in his grappling and his striking. And he has a very sophisticated system in that regard. And a lot of times when you see these guys who are just really good Division I wrestlers, they're good at taking guys down, and they may even be good at holding them there, but what they do on the mat isn't all that sophisticated. It's just kind of brutish, so to speak. It's not like they're doing a whole lot that's impressive. With Gregor, it looks like as he's evolved through his career, he's definitely added a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to his game, and a lot of that from the top as far as guard passing, as far as control from typical Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu positions. Looks like he's getting comfortable in these positions. Now, is he as good is he as good as Khabib is in those positions? Obviously not. But I'm still pretty impressed with what I'm seeing from him. As far as the striking goes, similar to Khabib in that they like to use that lead hand to set up the rear hand, and kind of every time they throw the lead hand, they like to duck, and then get your hands down and then throw a right hand over the top. Obviously, the big punch that landed on Conor McGregor in the Khabib fight was just that, where he kind of ducked down to change his level. Conor's hand was down to prepare for a shot, and then the overhand right came over the top and caught him. Similar strategy used by Gregor. And what's interesting with both of those guys is there's always this question that kind of goes to the back of your head where it's like, okay, well, that works against a guy who's worried either that if you get in on a shot, they're not going to be able to defend it, or if they take you down, then you're not going to be able to defend yourself. But what happens if you're going up against a high-level wrestler who's not worried about you getting in on a shot, or if you're going up against a high-level jiu-jitsu guy who doesn't care if you get him down? What happens then? And I think both for Gregor and Khabib, that's still a question that we'd like to see answered. I don't know who in the top 15 is really going to be able to answer those questions. So I'm taking a quick look at the rankings. Obviously, it'd be interesting to see Gregor and Khabib fight eventually down the line just because they're both dominant wrestlers. So it'd be interesting to see who could impose their will or impose their style. But if you look at the other guys in the top 15, the other guy ranked number 15 is Islam Makhachev, pretty good wrestler. I think Gregor probably still wins that match going away. As far as other guys who I think would be interesting matchups, Alexander Hernandez is one possibility because he has a decent wrestling background, but he's not on Gregor's level. I think Gregor could probably have his way with Hernandez, similar to his past 5 opponents. The matchup that really stands out to me, I think, would be actually at number 7 with Justin Gaethje. Now, Gaethje was a Division I All-American at Northern Colorado. Now, it's not. Now, Gregor was a national champion and a 4-time All-American, so he's definitely a level ahead of Justin Gaethje. But the question is Gaethje's wrestling good enough to sort of stifle Gregor and force him to have to strike a little bit more and do a little bit more than just throw that lead hand and then throw the lead hand, duck, and then try to throw an overhand? And there's a possibility that in that matchup, he could be forced to bang a little, and we'd actually get to see a little bit more of Gregor striking. Because what Gregor's doing, you can't really knock it because it's perfect for what his skill set is. Maybe he has much more sophisticated striking than what we're seeing, and he doesn't need to use it, and he isn't using it because he doesn't have to use it. But from what we've seen, it's hard to say where Gregor's striking is just because he hasn't had to employ kicks. He hasn't had to really get too sophisticated with it because his wrestling's been so overpowering that people have to worry about, and he's able to take advantage of that with his kind of simple lead hand and then big shot with the rear hand approach that he takes. Outside of that, Kevin Lee could be an interesting matchup. I think I can't, unfortunately, with Al Iaquinta being so far up in the rankings, he's not going to be a guy who'll be next for Gregor. I think that would have been a really interesting matchup had Kevin Lee beat Al Iaquinta. I would have liked to have then seen Al fight Gregor, but since that's not the case, I think the next best fight for Gregor Gillespie at this point is going to be Justin Gaethje, and if he can't get that, then I mean, possibly a James Vick, but I think he's going to run through Vick just like he ran through his last fight.